Well, our spring disciple trip 2021, the first disciple trip since the pandemic. And it was a trip to an international destination, not something in the States. So that came with a bunch of host of challenges. But we just carried through. This is our group. There were 15 brave souls that, let me zoom in on that. Oops. 15 brave souls that ventured off to Anahuac, Mexico, and we all met in El Paso and then loaded into 2 vans and drove across the border and drove about 6 hours to the home. But in this picture there are some Bibles. My son went. There's 3 people from our home congregation back in Pueblo, Colorado. There's some Loop people. There's 4 of them Loop people in there. Well, I guess 6 if you count Pearl and I. That's right. Yes. And then
Josh is related to us too. So.
That's right. And Josh Leonards, he's originally from Pueblo, but now lives in San Angelo. His great uncle is Bo, who preaches at Brownfield. So if you know Bo Shiro, that's his great nephew. He's a great nephew. He's a great guy. We had some people from Lubbock. We had 2 ladies from El Paso join us. Fantastic women. So just a whole bunch of different people. But you know, from the get-go, there was just this. There was fear. There was the unknown. There was some criticism about whether we should be going. And I think this verse kind of just speaks to where we were all at. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And that was kind of the theme of our trip, is that we were putting our trust in God. The 2 vans we drove to Casa in, I nicknamed Caleb and Joshua, because of the 12 spies, they were the 2 that says, we're not going to be fearful. We're going to trust God and go forward. The other 10 spies, they played right into criticism and fear, and actually ended up bringing down that nation for 40 years when everybody started listening to them. So we just pushed forward, trusting God. We were cautious with the things that we did. It wasn't that we just threw caution to the wind and said, we'll do whatever. We were cautious, but we trusted that God would be with us, and He was. And what a blessing that trip was. So in the remaining time, I'm going to attempt to show you everything we did on this trip. I can tell you right now, I will fall short, because what we packed into 6 days, I think a normal person would have spread out over 18 days.
I will tell you, that first night, Darren's telling us all the things that we're doing, and I'm counting everything, and I'm like, Darren, we're only here for like 5 or 6 days. That's about 14 or 15 days worth of stuff. And he just smiled and said, yep.
And we felt that way at the end. I don't think I've ever been that exhausted. We were exhausted, but we just laid it all out. We didn't leave anything behind. If anybody thinks going on a mission trip is a vacation, they obviously have not been on a mission trip with me. It is a vacation in that you're leaving the world that you are used to and comfortable with, and you're going off into a new one, but you're not going off there to sit back and relax. You're going there to serve. And we did that. So let's look at some of the things that we were able to do. 2 weeks ago today, we were able to do something extremely incredible. And that is worship with the Iglesia de Cristo, which is the Church of Christ, in Anahuac. And the reason it is so incredible is because this building, which is the church building / community center, it's not just going to be used on Sundays, but it's also going to be open to the community for different things during the week. This building I have seen go from a patch of land in the center of town to starting to build it, to we've built it, but now we need an evangelist to come and preach here. All these things have taken time, and it's been God's timing. And finally, 1 month ago, after years of hoping that there would be a church planted in town, this church building was open for worship a month ago. And so we got to go in and worship with the congregation. Of course, it has 3 stories to it. One of those is a balcony, which is where the children from Casa sit. But let me just back up. So there's always been the Church of Christ in Anahuac. It's just been at the orphanage. Many people have been brought to Christ in Anahuac. Many of the children have been baptized into Christ. But there's not been a place in town to worship. So people would have to venture out of town, which is where the orphanage is, in order to worship. And it didn't always happen. There was always worship every Sunday at Casa. So it's always had, the church has always been there. But now it's in town where the community is ready to, I think, just be a part of this church. And I'll share why it's been prime. So this is upstairs where the beautiful children of Casa sit. And of course, the minute I found out some of us could go up there, that's where I was. Because that's definitely where I want to be. Okay, we have one adult from the orphanage up there. One. 40 children, ages 4 to, what's the oldest, 17? Something along that line. A lengthy service, not a peep, nobody even acting uncomfortable. Like, where does this happen? What are they feeding these kids that would cause them to be just perfect throughout worship? But anyway, they are. And you should hear them sing. And maybe next year I can bring a video that let you hear them sing. They sing with their whole being. Kind of like Loop. They love singing. So there's another connection you have to these kids. I think you can notice they do not look like Mexican nationals. Do you see that there's a different look that all of them have? This year, I think it was 100% of them are Tarahumara Indian. So they're not Mexican nationals. They're indigenous people that are in the orphanage. And that's typical. Normally the orphanage has primarily Tarahumara Indian. They're kind of a looked down race. They're pretty much mistreated by others. They're pushed away as outcasts, and they grow up believing that about themselves, that their value is not as high, and that's why many of their children end up abandoned, because they just don't have this sense of that they're an image bearer of God. And so that's one thing the home seeks to do, is to let them know they are not lesser people. They're image bearers of God. So I got way off track real quickly, didn't I? So anyway, so there's more pictures of the kids and Josh. And Brandon, I think Brandon came and preached here once. So Brandon was in my youth group. He's going through SIBI. His brother Paul came and preached here once as well. But I had, and this is Walker. He was in my youth group. Aubrey was in my youth group, and she survived me. So we were able to worship. This is Gil. He's the director of Casa. He's on a 5-year plan. So he signed up for 5 years to go and run Casa. And that was 22 years ago. So he's just about at the end. Yeah, he went for 5 years, and then he was going to go into state politics. That was his next step. He was a teacher at the college there, and his wife had a great career going. And when he visited Casa, he's from Pueblo as well, where we're from. When he visited Casa, he just said, I need to come and run this for 5 years and kind of get it in a good place. And 22 years later, he has no desire to ever leave. So pretty awesome. Awesome man. This is Pepe. He is going to take over as the director. So he's the deputy director. Gil is getting up there in years. He's starting to get up there in years. And he knows it's time to start training the next person. Let me tell you about Pepe real quickly. I'm never going to get through this. Pepe is from Mexico City. And Pepe and David, my son, worked together at the church in Mexico City. And just a few months ago, Pepe accepted this position to move now to Anahuac, which is a twisty, turny world, because David went into AIM and all this because of visiting Casa. And that's how he got to know Pepe. And now Pepe's at Casa. And it's just funny how the connections are there. So that's Pepe. This is during worship. This is Osvaldo. He is brand new to Casa as well. Just 2 months he's been there. He'll be the pulpit minister. And he's from Mexico City and worked with David at the church in Mexico City. So 2 men that David worked with are now going to help take the church forward and the orphanage forward. Of course, you guys have Killer, who waits at the door while I'm preaching, and we had a dog waiting there while Osvaldo was preaching. Isn't that the cat's name, Killer?
The dog snuck in too.
Oh yeah, when we were taking pictures, the dog came in. But look at that, one blue eye. Anyway, so this is worship, and that's Osvaldo. Osvaldo has already been privileged to baptize 7, I think, in the 6 weeks the church building has been opened. And some of those have been children from Casa. The day we were there, he took the confession of this young lady from Casa and then baptized her. Their baptistry is really neat. It's about this height. It's about knee height. So everyone can get around and watch the baptism. It's really neat.
And that's Vanessa.
Vanessa. And then everybody, gathers around and then sing and sing and sing. They really do love to sing. They really remind me of Luke in many ways. And just beautiful, beautiful children. And then afterwards, that's Gil and Osvaldo praying over her. I thought that was a beautiful image. So then we were we had a group picture with the congregation. So none of the children are in this, but these are all members of the church in Anahuac and our group. And this lady right over here, Yolanda, she invited us even into her home later in the week, which was just awesome. Awesome in all kinds of ways. So that's what we did last 2 weeks ago Sunday.
Darren,
Yes,
is that whole town pretty much those Indians? Or-
I would say not. I'd say the town is split. It's probably 60-40. Mexican National 60, probably 40% Tarahumara. The Tarahumars mainly do, they work in the orchards. And then the Mexican Nationals, their main job is at the paper mill. So there's a paper mill in that town.
What kind of orchard?
Apple.
Apple.
Are there other ones, Tom? Is it just apple? I think it's just apple.
It's called the land of apples and cheese.
So cheese trees as well.
No, but,
They have a cheese orchard out back.
Predominantly apple orchards. But also.
That was a
dairy.
cheesy joke. So hey, you know what? Can I just tell you something? If all we got to experience was day one, it was a win.
Yeah.
We got to worship with brothers and sisters who have been longing for the church. And when I tell you that town is ripe for the harvest, it is. The fields are white there. Osvaldo and Pepe were both talking about when they would door knock in Mexico City, people were brutal with them and ugly. They would just tell them, not only do I not want to hear what you have to say, I'm going to do it in a vulgar way. I'm going to tell you that. He says, here we knock on a door and they say, tell me what you want to tell me. And we'll listen. We may not agree, but we'll listen. And what a blessing to just have people that will listen. The town is primed for another reason that we'll get to shortly, and that is for years and years and years, 20 years probably plus, when groups come in, they go out to the community and do a food distribution because that community is poor. And so we have offered that community tons and tons of food. And every time there's something about the Church of Christ in there, either in what we say that this is a gift from Casa de la Esperanza and the Church of Christ, or we have some pamphlets that are put in the bags of food. And this year, we were able to do a food distribution. I got ahead of myself. A food distribution with pamphlets saying, come worship with us on Sunday at this time in this building that you can't miss in the town center. Because it's a towering building. So the town is primed. The church is going to just flourish and grow. We have 2 great men of God that have just hired on at Casa. And Gil is just excited about the future. I'm excited about the future, and I hope you're excited about the future. Well, here's some things that we did do because we were on a mission trip, and one of the things you want to do on a mission trip is serve. And we served in many ways, but one of those ways was we did physical labor. So we painted a wall. And so these 2 fine young men painted this block wall. So Gil has recently built this block wall that goes around the entire compound. Half a mile of block wall. Just keeping these kids safe, letting them know that they're safe. The mental part of this is huge because I'll get to this eventually, or I'll get to it right now. a lot of these children come from horrific backgrounds. Horrific. Not all of them, but many of them come from extreme abuse, human trafficking, things where they need to feel protected, and he wants them to know. First of all, when you enter this facility, you're going to know this is a nice facility because you're worth it. Again, you're an image bearer of God. Secondly, he wants you to know you're protected. So there's safety. So for the entire summer, they'll be painting this block wall. We did like 9 sections. Pretty awesome. So it's a block wall, and then it's stuccoed over and then painted. Some of the men and ladies did gardening. So they have 2 greenhouses that every year, this is a traditional March project that we do. We get the soil ready. So there was some farming going on down at Casa. There's a lot of farming that goes on at Casa. He wants to be self-sufficient as much as possible. So he even has cows and pigs. And anyway, so some of the men and women did gardening. They'll cover these with plastic, but during the winter they take the plastic off because it's windy down there, just like Loop. It was windy all the way to Casa that day. It was bad here. So just more gardening and manuring. So another project we did, this is a huge gymnasium that is not being used as a gymnasium right now. It's being used to house donations that Casa is given by many, many different individuals. And sometimes he'll buy out something and just buy everything they have and bring it to Casa. So all this stuff was tucked against the wall, and all we did really was just bring it out and separate it so he could see what he has and figure out what needs to stay and what needs to go. But that's what these groups can offer someone like Gil, who to do this on his own he'd have to hire somebody to do this. And so we just go and offer our help. And that was after we got all done. Everything was separated. And anyway, and we have foosball tables. Anyway, Chelsea and Pearl got to go to the church building for a couple days and put lettering up on the walls. So just different scriptures all over the building, around the baptistry. And Pearl did one that had to be removed. So it was a different type of sticker that just did not work out. But hey, she looks good doing it. That's, we've got the profile pic. There was Pearl working hard.
Chelsea Bella still no Baptist.
Yeah. But I wasn't there, or I would have had pictures of Chelsea. So, but anyway, just really neat. Just trying to put scripture in people's minds. Another part of the group did some painting inside. There's a wing that used to be the dormitory wing, but he's built a whole new dormitory facility. So now those previous dormitory wings are being used for other things. One wing is a school, so their school is on site. They don't go to public school anymore, which was always a problem to some degree for many different reasons. The kids were always put down for being orphans, put down for being Taramar. It was a rough place. Now their school is on site, and the other wing is also an educational wing, but it's also going to have this huge room about the size of this room that will be simply for devotionals and things like that. Where we do our devotionals now is in the same room the kitchen is in, so sometimes it's hard to hear over what's going on in the kitchen, and there's always something going on in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who does the teaching in the on-site?
So he hires teachers.
He hires.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's amazing. It's amazing. This is my good friend Jeff from back home in Pueblo, one of my supporters, and he's a great painter. And so he was put in charge. That's his wife, Tanya, that handsome man, David Bible. So, and Savannah. So they got to start the painting. Gil doesn't do anything bland. There are no white rooms. Everything has color. He wants those children, not every room, but most rooms have some color pop. Wants those kids just to have a full, rich facility. When you think of orphanages, you think usually of something very
industrial, like
bingo,
Stark.
and it's not meant to be like that. It's just, we need to facilitate these many children, and we need to just
And it's so much easier just to keep things
Just
plain.
white. Yeah. And so his whole outlook is, I want them to feel loved, I want them to feel necessary, and in a place that they love to be. And we all get to work in the kitchen. Well, not all of us. Most of us get to work in the kitchen. So there's always kitchen work to do, which is always fun. Or not. I'm not sure.
No,
Jeff doesn't look like he's very happy there, but it's hard to tell behind the mask. And that is Patty. She's the cook. Recent hire?
Yes.
So she lost her job during COVID. She had a really good job, she said, but she lost it during COVID and was thankful that Casa hired her to be the cook.
She said she is not a chef, but her mom was a very good chef. But
Ooh.
she's really good too.
Well, our food the entire time was just amazing. The only meal that was questionable was the one we cooked, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, we're doing pretty good. I felt like I was going to have to be an auctioneer this morning, but we're doing good. Because I don't want to be an auctioneer. That's not as fun for you all. So activities that we did. Some days, the first day, Sunday, we just played with the kids in the afternoon, and they'll play all afternoon and all evening. They love to play. They love to keep you included in the play. If you go sit by yourself, you will have one of the children at Casa come get you. They recognize being alone is not good. Again, where these kids come from, it's incredible, the transformation.
I'll tell you, with playing the very first day, I started playing with this one little boy. I think he's 6. He had some superhero figures, and we started playing, and you know, he gave me one. Well, then these 2 or 3 other kids came up, and there wasn't enough toys for everybody. But there wasn't a single kid that got upset about anything. If someone asked for one, they would just give it to them. And then somebody else would see that one didn't have it, so they would give them his that they had. There wasn't a single time that any of those kids ever got upset about play and something
And they always
and not
included
have. Yeah, they always try to include somebody else.
Now, I can tell you from going many times, it doesn't always happen like that, but the majority of the time, that's how it is. I remember the first year I went, there was probably 6 of them playing with a single rollerblade. Not 2 pairs of roller skates, 1 rollerblade. And it was like they were surfing on it, and they couldn't wait for the next one to get their turn. It's crazy how much they can't wait for the next person to have their turn. I don't even know what to say. I'll say more though. But they love, and they'll tell you what sport they love and what they want to go play, and they'll play it with everything they've got. There's a large group that all they want to do is play soccer all the time, and so our group was always willing. Now, one day we did what was called field day games. That's what I call it. And you probably recognize that term from elementary school, where it was just a day of doing fun games. My field day games were different than maybe what we're used to in public schools today, but I brought back, like sack races. So we found these fun sacks that had like a chili, pepper.
Yeah.
And it was like a fiesta sack race. So it was awesome. But man, talk about, so Jeff is a very stoic guy. Oh, he's probably gonna watch this sometime. Oh well, Jeff's kind of a stoic guy, and just watching him come out of that shell, and he basically told me at the end of this day, my stomach hurts from laughing. And you just laughed and smiled all day long, because they give it everything they've got. Even Sam. So we played, I had all these hula hoop games, which I thought were going to be a success, and they were. And one of them was tic-tac-toe, where you had to race down with your beanbag and quickly get it. And just to hear the screaming from the kids waiting in line of where you should put your beanbag, it was hilarious. And then Chelsea and Savannah started blocking them so they couldn't make it too easy, and that made it more challenging. And they love any challenge. But let me tell you, these girls and boys, it doesn't matter girls or boys, all they want to do is run. All they want to do is race. Everything they want to race. I mean, they love competing against each other. And of course, Nayeli is 4 years old, so she gets lots of photographs because she's just awesome. But what was neat about those races, some of those races, all the group noticed it. They were relay races. So when your next person gets back, you can go. You know what most of them did? Waited till both of them had got back, and then they would go. Because they wanted it to be, okay, I'll wait for you. All right, now we'll go. It's just really neat to see such hearts of sportsmanship and caring about each other. We had some bizarre games, so I'm just telling you. But I just love seeing smiles in the background of everybody enjoying these. So this was a 3-legged race. He, the 17-year-old, picks the smallest boy to be tied to. He's pulling down his pants, so he's trying to hold him up. Oh my goodness. But just look at the laughter. Oh, don't you want to go? I want to go back. Oh, they're so awesome. And these two really figured out, man, they were flying. It was, I mean, literally flying, huh, Hazlitt? And then we had to demonstrate these ridiculous games. So there's Gary demonstrating that we're going to race with a beach ball between our heads. Once again, here's the next funny picture. The smallest girl gets with the tallest girl and just face plants it. But man, she did not let anything stop her. I don't care what the game was. I'm going to do it just as good as a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. Awesome spirit. And then, you know, my favorite. All I had to do is bring out the parachute, and they're like, yep, we're in. We're in for the next 4 hours if you want us to be in. And we played it for quite a while, and I think next year I'll play it even more. But it's so fun to see their instincts of just how fun that is. Does anybody else remember doing this in elementary school? Well, I did it in elementary school, and there's one game where you all go once, and you have like a basketball in the middle, and it throws it up. So we threw it all the way to the ceiling. But I remember being in what did I tell you, kindergarten?
Yeah.
And they put me on the center. I was so skinny. So, and then I heard some of them saying, put Nayeli on, put Nayeli on. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Did you see where that basketball ended up? So y'all didn't do that down here in Loop? No. I'll bring it. We'll do it. We're going to do it. We'll do it over at the center. Another activity we did is we had a barbecue, an American barbecue for them. So nearby city is Cuauhtemoc, and there's a Sam's Club there. So I went there to get the hamburger patty. Pearl and I went to get the hamburger patties and everything else. And so everything else looked pretty normal. And Pearl gets the bags that say American beef. It's just a brand. Don't let the name fool you. It was not. So we brought the American beef home and laid it all out. They were all individually wrapped, very bizarre. And I'm like, these feel weird. And then we cook them, and it's like, these cook weird. I mean, they're a mystery meat. I don't know what they are. They were like Spam or something, but it was awesome. I mean, the kids loved it. And Pearl made French fries. Many of those kids had never had French fries. So, papas fritas. And so it was neat for them to experience some stuff. But I was like, what is this mystery meat we are serving? So next year we're going to take the hamburgers with us. I've got my cheeks full. This is the taste test. And we're like, what does this taste like? It wasn't quite like an American hamburger, but it was good. But it was just weird consistency. Moving on. That day, we did a barbecue, and then we played fiesta games with everybody. Many of them had never did pin the tail on the donkey. So Chelsea and Savannah were in charge of that. And all the way to the tallest one did it and didn't complain. Who does that? What 17-year-old says yes to pin the tail on the donkey?
That's with all the boys, even the older boys. There wasn't any of this macho. Man, this is silly.
Sometimes you will have the macho thing at Casa. You'll have some of the older ones that were raised that way, but this group was just exceptional. Another thing we did were these sponge races, different things we would do with sponges. A lot of fun, a lot of screaming, a lot of cheering, a lot of smiles, people getting wet. And man, just this desire to enjoy racing against each other. And the limbo. A lot of them had never done the limbo. So that was fun. Then we had a piñata to celebrate the birthdays in March. It was a lot of fun. They sing a little song as you have your turn at bat, and then when that song is over, the next person gets their turn, including Pearl. So she did it. I'll tell you a little story about Pearl. So the reason that she's up there is there was one girl that wouldn't hit the piñata. She was blindfolded and just kind of froze. And so Pearl went up and took her blindfold off and helped her hit it. And one of the staff was talking to one of our people that speaks Spanish and said, that's really good that she did that because that girl came from a children's home where they would beat them with rods. And so she just kind of froze don't know if that was why she froze, but she had trauma in her past, and our sweet Pearl helped her through that. And then Gil said, all right, now it's your turn. So, I mean, Gil spun her around so many times, and she gets vertigo, and I'm like, oh boy. And she rocked it. So that was one of the activities We did. And these are just afternoons. We just had like 3 hours with the kids, and this is what we would do most afternoons with the kids, is different things. One day we did a VBS. The last day we did our VBS, which was a blast. They just loved to sing, so they started singing some Spanish VBS songs, and they were just so fun to watch with that. And then we got up and did some calm, very mundane VBS songs with no energy, low energy.
I think he pulled something. I think.
Yeah, I pulled a muscle from doing one of the songs, because I really get into VBS. I am very tied to VBS. I love VBS. So we had a blast. And then Chelsea had created these incredible crafts. Crafts normally last 30 minutes at Casa, and then you're just like, fine, go outside and play. I can tell you're done with this. We did crafts for almost 2 hours. And everyone gave 110%. I just never seen anything like this, where they were just, of course, they haven't had a group there in over a year. So we kind of walked on water in some respects, that it was so nice to have a group back, but we didn't. I'm just saying it was good that a group was there, and they just embraced all of it. Some of them had never experienced a group coming, so this was all new to them. And then Chelsea had created such really good crafts that took effort, that you could be creative with. Look at that smile. Oh my goodness, that smile. Love that girl. This girl, her name is Jenny, and she really knows the Tarahumara language. And that language is kind of drifting away. It's being lost over time. And so many of the kids were trying to teach me some Tarahumara words. They'd never done that before, but on this trip they were. And so I would ask them, what is this in Tarahumara? And they'd be go, Jenny. And so Jenny was the go-to girl for anything. So it was neat for her to feel tied to her culture and life. And just they were happy to just build a basket. So neat. Love it. Love those tables. And then we did a play, and everybody participated but me. I recorded it. But everybody participated in the play, and Sam was the star, and Sam absolutely knocked it out of the park. We did it in Spanish, and Sam did it in Spanish, and exceptional job. Basically, it was the story of feeding of the 5,000, seeing it through the boy who brought his lunch that Jesus used to share it with. The point was, at the end, David narrated it, and he basically told the kids, look what Jesus did with this little boy's insignificant little lunch. He can do that with you. Whoever you are, give it all to him, and look what he'll be able to do with your life. So that just speaks to letting them know that even though they may feel insignificant, they're not in the hands of Jesus. Same way with us. We're not insignificant. God can do great things through us if we'll just let him have his way with us. Let him have our life. The last night there, we did a bonfire and made s'mores. Incredible. I mean, just so incredible. And then they just sing and sing, and they want us to sing in English. And every time we would sing in English, they would clap like it was the best thing they've ever heard. You want to talk about, yeah, we're pretty good, apparently. I mean, the first day that happened, we just did a simple song. They were trying to learn Wonderful, Wonderful, Jesus is to me. They were trying to learn that in Spanish, so it was kind of new to them. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll sing it in English. So we did it in English, and they all went, oh, yes. But it's just beautiful. They want to honor you. And of course, that is addictive. That is, what is the word I'm looking for? When people are looking to honor you, you want to honor them. And it's just this back and forth. And that's what we're to do as the church, is encourage one another and glorify God through what he's doing in our lives. So we had this wonderful bonfire, wonderful s'mores, and then got to tell them the bad news that we're leaving at 6 in the morning, and then to hear the gasp come up from those kids just rips your heart out. Gil says, yeah, they're going to be leaving at 6 in the morning, and you hear this, and then the tears start, and then our tears start, and it's pretty rough. So we'll move on to something else. The food distribution, we bought $500 worth of food to distribute out to the community. It was onions, potatoes, rice, beans. And so that goes a long way. Did we do 50 bags or 60 bags? Something like that.
57.
57. There's our numbers. So, and these come in bulk, so we have to bag them into little bags ourselves. Some years we've been able to buy them pre-bagged, but I think this is better, that we all pitch in and work on
Did you
it.
take that with you, or did you?
No, we bought it down there.
The bonnet down
Mhm.
there.
Yeah. So Gil orders that from a local, and then we just pull into the poorer area of town, and Gil starts honking his horn, and the people know what that means, and they start coming. They're not coming as entitled. They're coming in humility. Gary is taking this to a little house on the hill. I looked this house up, and in 2014, I wish I could show the picture. In 2014, where her house is then, it was just covered with plastic tarps. That was her house, was just plastic tarps, and now it's a block house. So thankfully, over time, she's been able to improve her living conditions. But there's Gary taking her some food, and just wonderful people coming down. She's a member of the church, but very poor, and we brought toys for the children. This is another one of those houses that now it has tin, but in 2014 it was just tar paper. That's all it was.
And it's literally a little bit smaller than our foyer, really.
Yeah.
There. It's not. I mean, it's very small.
And those are all Taramars on that hill. But just people coming out for help, and beautiful people, very humble, very open to listening to Gil telling them, well, the church is open now. Okay, we'll be there. And some of them probably will. This lady, Gil thinks she's probably about 90. Every year we go, she always is there to be helped, and she's a sweet lady. But Gil asked, one of the groups said, can we help her take her food back to her house? And Gil says, do you want some of these men to take the food? No, I've got this. She's a strong lady. And she's like, I don't need no help. But anyway, that's just the food distribution. God's message was shared throughout this trip in many different ways. One of those ways was at the evening devotional that the kids have every evening. That's one way, and it's shared through singing, it's shared through a message. Some of our group, this is Brandon doing the devotional talk, and he speaks fluent Spanish. I don't know how he speaks it so fluently. He was in AIM for a short time in Cochabamba, Bolivia, but he speaks it like it's his first language. And he's went with me to Casa for probably 8 times, maybe more. This is his first trip to be able to speak the language with those kids. So it was really special to see him take it to a totally new level.
Is that the basic language that the kids speak, is Spanish?
They have to learn Spanish. So some of them that are from the, what would we call it? Where some of them come from, we're deep in the, we'd say deep in the bush, but that's not the bush. But some of them actually don't speak Spanish. They just speak Taramar. Not so often, but once in a while you'll get that. But Spanish is what's spoken. So singing with them, I got to take a video next year so you can hear them sing, because it's incredible. But then this was the hospitality we were shown by Yolanda. She says, I want all you Americans in my little house. And so we all went. She had coffee, she had cookies, and we sang. And Osvaldo gave a devotional, and David translated. He'd never translated before. That's a whole different level. It's one thing to speak it. It's a whole other thing to have to convert that from Spanish to English. But he did it, and he did a great job. I was so proud of him. But I will tell you a funny story is my head popped off the pillow about 1 o'clock in the morning the next morning. Because at Casa, the water comes from a well, and it's good to drink. You can drink it all day long, right out of the tap, and we do. And I tell our group, this is the only place that you can drink the water, but you can drink it here. We go to Yolanda's, and she has all this hot water waiting for your instant coffee, because that's what a lot of Latin American countries drink, is instant coffee, even though that's where coffee comes from. So she had all of her instant coffee out, and we all had it. And I popped off that pillow. I said, we drank the water in Mexico, and I was the leader. So I asked David, I said, would that have come from the tap in Mexico City? He says, oh no, it would have come from a jug. I said, was there a jug there? Yeah, there was a jug there. Okay. And I almost took it down in flames. At least for a few days it would have been.
Chelsea said that meant she bought the water.
Yeah, she bought the water.
So that was very
Oh yeah, exactly. So we actually left her a donation, not to pay her back, but to say her level of hospitality, which reminds me of a lot of Loopites. I don't know if that's a good term. People from Loop is so much. She just wants to. Hey, every word out of her mouth was, "This is not my house. This is your house. This is your kitchen." And so we left a donation to just say, go bless other people the way you blessed us. Thank you for blessing us and bless others.
Well, and there were not enough seats for everybody for sure, but two of the young men were standing, and they were perfectly happy to stand because the Yolanda and her three girls that were there, they stood the whole time, and they wanted to stand the whole time. But she had her youngest girl go down and grab 2 5-gallon buckets and get some towels to set on top of them to make them more comfortable, so that those young guys would have
Such
a place to see.
hospitality. And she was baptized, Rodrigo was there probably 5 years ago. 5 years ago, and so she's anxiously been waiting for this church building to open so that she can just be there every time that they're doing something there. And I just saw a recent picture of a Bible study going on at the church building, and there she was. Of course she was. So this was out front of her house. And another thing that we did in sharing God's message was every morning and every evening, we as a group had a devotional. And Gil usually did the one in the morning. He would just tell a story of something that had happened in the past of Casa, and they were always very touching. And then in the evening, we would just kind of debrief and talk about what you saw today and how that's opened your heart to being more like Jesus, or where we saw Jesus in someone today. Because that's what it's all about, is us being more like Jesus. Okay, that's the presentation. And so for the remainder, you can stay, and I'm just going to click through some pictures with this thought in mind. On the wall where we stay, in the dormitory we stay, and in other places at Casa, is this phrase that says, all children smile in the same language. And it's extremely true that it doesn't matter what language this child speaks, we understand this. And it comes about in a very special way with these children, something I'm going to talk about more in the sermon today. But God shows no partiality. We might put people on different levels. We might say, well, that person, I'm better than that person, or, oh, that person's really a sinner. But we're all equal in God's eyes. And when you go to Casa and you see these children, you just recognize that it doesn't matter what their background. God loves them equally. They are equal image bearers to you and I. We are all bearers of the image of God. So I'll just click through these, and if Gary or somebody wants to share anything else, but that's it. So I'm going to just click through these. But Gary, anything that I've left out? Oh yeah, I left out a lot because we packed a lot.
I do have some video of singing. If you want to see on my
Oh yeah, upload those to that site,
I'll have to get my professional to show me how to do that.
Yeah.
We'll work on
But they were just so happy to just play ring toss with a hula hoop.
So something, the Tarmar culture, they're very well known for being runners. As a matter of fact, they have a race, I believe it's every year, that's like 100 miles, that they have to kick a ball while they're running.
Correct.
Not even just run. Well, with the girls, when we were doing these, we had a little bit extra time left over, and we asked them, okay, which one do you want to do? Which one of these races? And they said they just wanted to run. And they did, and they wanted to just run, and all of them, and every single one of them loved to run. One of them took Savannah, I think it was Paulina, grabbed Savannah that last day and said, let's go run, and like literally made her run around their
That's what she
entire,
wanted to do.
and she's just like, I'm not made for this. But Savannah kept going with her.
You know, I'm going to talk about it more in the sermon, but the center of all this was God. He just opened every door, made everything seamless. Even with the wind, we still made it. It was just terrible wind getting down there and terrible low visibility. We got to the border and there was a long line, and God made a path for us through Gil. Gil says, follow me. Because all those people were waiting in a line that we didn't know what they were waiting for. It wasn't immigration. We were the only ones there wanting to go into Mexico. So we had no line. But we didn't know we had no line until Gil told us, no, there's no line for you. So
everybody was wanting to come out of Mexico?
No, they were there for registration, vehicle registration. They do a lot of things at the border. So this little boy, since we have a minute,
It's Esau.
once the piñata broke, they're only allowed 3 pieces at the end, but you can gather some more and then you're going to distribute it. So he had a whole bunch, and one of the ladies on our trip says, I was afraid he was going to start putting it in his pocket and everything. But as soon as Gil came near him, he was like, here it is. Share this with others. I just, spirit like I'm not used to, but I love. And it just catches on the more you're around it.
One thing, we didn't go on this trip, but we used 2 years ago, and because of social media, the relationships that we formed with these little kids when they grew up and got their own families, they found us and still reach out to us and talk to us. So I thought we closed a chapter whenever our kids graduated high school. We didn't go down there anymore, but it goes right on. It's for their whole life for those children.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how much they wanna keep that relationship, and I'm the same way. I have a number of children that used to be at the home who are now adults that we talk on Facebook sometimes. But such beautiful kids, beautiful team. I was blessed with a dream team, and they were a dream team. There they are. There's that dream team, and I tell you, I just loved it. That's it. For now, but I've got more for the sermon. I hope this has been encouraging.